You won't believe what happened when the HOA. Karen from my neighborhood started parking her shiny Porsche right in my driveway without asking. At first, I thought maybe she just needed a place for a minute or two, but this quickly turned into a full-on daily invasion. Every morning, I'd step outside only to find her luxury car blocking my way, acting like she owned the place. It wasn't just a small inconvenience. It felt like a personal challenge, like she was testing my patience on purpose. For weeks, I tried being polite, leaving notes, asking her directly, even chatting with other neighbors to see if this was normal HOA behavior. But Karen didn't back down. In fact, it seemed like she enjoyed pushing the boundaries more and more. I knew this wasn't just about a car or parking spots anymore. It was about respect, boundaries, and how some people think they can get away with anything just because they're part of the HOA committee. You know, the type always ready to flex their power and make everyone else's life difficult. I wanted to stand my ground. But how do you deal with someone so stubborn and entitled? That's when the idea hit me. If Karen wanted to act like the driveway belonged to her, maybe I could take that to the next level in a way she wouldn't expect. So, I did something bold, something that got everyone talking in the neighborhood. I put her precious Porsche for sale right there on my driveway. Yep, you heard that right. But what happened next was way more than I ever imagined. Stick around, because this story isn't over yet. You won't want to miss how Karen reacted and what all this chaos meant for me, the neighborhood, and that notorious Porsche. Trust me, it's about to get wild. To really understand why I took such a bold step, you have to know a little more about how things got to this point. The neighborhood where I live is usually pretty quiet. People keep to themselves, and we all try to follow the rules set by the HOA. But Karen, she's different. She's one of those HOA board members who takes things way too seriously, or maybe just uses her position to get what she wants. And apparently, that includes parking wherever she pleases, even if that means blocking someone else's driveway every single day. It wasn't just the parking. Over time, Karen started showing up in other ways, always acting like she was in charge of the entire block. She'd complain about the smallest things, like if my grass was a little too long or if my trash cans were left out too late. But the Porsche parking thing, that was the last straw. It felt like she was trying to send a message, maybe, saying, I'm untouchable, or this is my turf now. And honestly, it felt pretty unfair. I reached out to the HOA a couple of times, hoping they'd step in and handle it. But their response was slow, vague, and honestly, a bit frustrating. It was like they were protecting Karen or didn't want to make waves. Meanwhile, my driveway stayed blocked. My mornings got more stressful, and my patience wore thinner. That's why I decided to flip the script. Putting the Porsche for sale wasn't just about the car, it was a way to take control back, to challenge Karen without starting a direct fight. It was a risky move, sure, but I figured sometimes you have to shake things up to get people's attention. What I didn't expect was how fast the news spread and how Karen would respond. Would she back down? Or would this escalate into something way bigger? There's more to this story than just a parking dispute. It's about boundaries, respect, and what happens when neighbors stop playing by the rules. And trust me, things are about to get even more intense. After I put up the for sale sign on Karen's Porsche, things in the neighborhood started to shift in ways I hadn't expected. Suddenly, neighbors who had quietly watched the whole drama unfold began to take sides. Some thought I was standing up for myself, finally calling out the HOA Karen's outrageous behavior. Others worried I was stirring up trouble and making the situation worse. The driveway dispute became more than just a simple parking problem. It was turning into a full neighborhood spectacle. What surprised me most was how the HOA itself reacted. Instead of stepping in to calm things down, they seemed to double down on protecting Karen. I heard whispers of backdoor meetings and quiet warnings not to escalate the conflict. It felt like the HOA was more interested in keeping their image clean than actually resolving the issues that were affecting residents. That made me question who really held the power here at the board or the people they were supposed to serve. Meanwhile, Karen's behavior grew even bolder. After seeing the for sale sign, she parked the Porsche even more defiantly, sometimes blocking not just my driveway, but the neighbors as well. It was like a silent power play, daring anyone to say something. Her attitude made it clear she wasn't going to back down easily, and that the parking dispute was just the surface of a much deeper tension. At the same time, I noticed another layer to the conflict: how people reacted when someone challenges the status quo. A few neighbors confided in me that they were tired of the HOA's heavy-handed rules and the way certain board members like Karen acted like rulers instead of neighbors. Others, however, were wary of rocking the boat, worried about what retaliation might look like. This wasn't just about a Porsche or a driveway anymore. It was about control, community, and what happens when respect breaks down in a place meant to feel like home. And the worst part, no one seemed to know how or when this fight would end. As the days passed, the tension in the neighborhood grew thicker, almost like you could cut it with a knife. Karen's Porsche remained parked on my driveway, glaringly bold beneath the glaring sun, and the for sale sign I'd put up felt less like a joke and more like a ticking time bomb. Every time I stepped outside, I braced myself for what might happen next. Would Karen finally confront me? Would the HOA take a side? Or would something even more unexpected happen? The neighbors, once quiet observers, began whispering in hushed tones by their fences and porches. Some came over to offer support, sharing their own frustrations with the HOA's unfair rules and Karen's attitude. Others seemed anxious, worried the conflict might spiral out of control. I could feel the divide growing, the peaceful community vibe cracking under the pressure of one woman's sense of entitlement and one person's refusal to back down. One afternoon, I caught sight of Karen glaring from her porch, her arms crossed tightly as if daring me to make the next move. It was clear she wasn't going to back down, and honestly, neither was I the longer this went on. The more it felt like we were on a collision course too. Stubborn wills set to clash over something that had long stopped being just about a parking space. What made it even more intense was the subtle ways the HOA tried to tighten control, sending notices about violations that seemed suspiciously timed, hinting at fines or penalties just to pressure me. The whole situation felt like a game of chess, each move carefully calculated, each side waiting for the other to crack first. At night, I lay awake, wondering how far this would go. Would Karen take it to the next level? Would the HOA finally intervene? Or would this standoff explode in a way no one expected? The calm neighborhood was now a powder keg, and I could feel the explosion coming any day. The story was about to reach its breaking point, and everyone was holding their breath to see what would happen next, just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier. The whole situation took an unexpected turn that threw me off balance. One morning, I woke up to find a notice slipped under my doorknob from the HOA this time, but from a towing company. They claimed the Porsche was illegally parked on my property, and that if it wasn't moved within 48 hours, it would be towed, at Karen's expense. At first, I thought it was a prank or some kind of mistake, but the paperwork was official looking, complete with a case number and all. That's when I realized Karen had called in reinforcements. She wasn't just relying on the HOA or her position. Anymore, she had lawyers and tow trucks ready to make sure her Porsche stayed put, no matter what. Suddenly, the stakes weren't just about a driveway or a for sale sign. This had escalated into a full legal battle, and I was caught right in the middle. Neighbors started talking even more, some siding with me, saying it was ridiculous for Karen to abuse power like this. Others worried about what a fight like this could do to our neighborhood's peace and property values. The quiet, friendly street I'd once loved felt charged with tension, suspicion, and uncertainty. Then, as if the towing threat wasn't enough, I noticed something else a few days later. A mysterious sticker appeared on my car windshield. It said, "Neighborhood Watch. We're watching you." No signature, no explanation. Just a warning that made my skin crawl. Was Karen behind it? Was someone else involved? The line between neighborly conflict and something darker was starting to blur. Now, the battle over that Porsche had turned into something much bigger. Test of wills. Power, and how far one person would go to claim what they thought was theirs. And the biggest question was, how far was I willing to fight back before everything spiraled out of control? The tension had been building for weeks, and finally, everything came to a head one afternoon when Karen showed up in person, clearly furious. She stormed onto my porch, demanding I remove the for sale sign immediately and accusing me of trying to ruin her reputation. I stayed calm, telling her that the driveway wasn't hers to use without permission, and that everyone deserved respect, including me. The neighbors gathered quietly nearby, sensing something big was about to happen. Just then, a few HOA board members arrived too, but instead of backing Karen, they surprised everyone by saying they had reviewed the situation and agreed that the parking rules were clear. The driveway belonged to me, and she had no right to block it. They even admitted their earlier delays were a mistake and promised stricter enforcement moving forward. It felt like a small victory, but more importantly, a clear message that abuse of power wouldn't be tolerated. Karen's face shifted from anger to disbelief. Then, unexpectedly, she blurted out that she'd been under a lot of pressure. Her Porsche was financed through the HOA's community fund as part of a promotional event she'd been leading. The car wasn't fully hers. And this whole parking battle was her way of covering up a bigger problem. The community fund was running low, and she was worried about being exposed. The crowd went silent. Suddenly, the for sale sign wasn't just a clever move on my part, had uncovered cracks in the HOA's foundation, exposing hidden tensions and secrets no one expected. Karen's defiant facade melted away, replaced by something far more human: fear and regret. In the end, the Porsche was moved, the driveway was cleared, and the neighborhood began healing. But the story didn't stop there. With the community now watching closely, changes were set in motion to make sure no one else could misuse their power again. Yet, as I walked away from that day, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much bigger journey, one where standing up for what's right would mean facing challenges nobody saw coming. After that intense confrontation, things in the neighborhood slowly started to change for the better. Karen moved her Porsche off my driveway, and the for sale sign finally came down. The HOA board followed through on their promise to enforce the rules fairly, and no one else dared to park where they shouldn't. It was a relief to see respect and order return. But the experience left a lasting impact on all of us. What stuck with me most was how this small dispute about a parking spot revealed bigger problems: how easy it is for some people to misuse their position, and how important it is for communities to stand up against that. The neighbors who had watched quietly before felt empowered to speak up, and we began working together to make sure the HOA stayed transparent and fair. It wasn't just about one Porsche or one driveway anymore. It was about trust, respect, and fairness in our neighborhood. Karen's confession about the community fund added a surprising layer to the story. It reminded me that behind every conflict, there are often hidden struggles and pressures. Her behavior wasn't acceptable. It was a wake-up call for all of us to look deeper and not jump to conclusions. Sometimes people act out because they're overwhelmed, not just because they want to cause trouble in the end. Standing my ground wasn't just about defending my driveway, it was about defending the values that make a community strong. Experience taught me the importance of communication, patience and courage when facing difficult situations. It also showed how one small act can inspire change and bring people together. Thanks for sticking with me through this story. If you've ever dealt with difficult neighbors or felt powerless in a community dispute, remember you're not alone, and sometimes standing up can make all the difference.